Hi everybody, last video of the week. Today we are going to use our scatter plots to create trend lines, and using equations of those trend lines we're going to predict some future data. So my little mini-me right here is telling you that it's time to predict the future. So using equations of trend lines we can make predictions about future data. We can input an unknown x value and determine its corresponding y value. Let's check out some examples of predicting the future. I know, it's exciting, right? So in the first example, we are looking at somebody's basketball statistics. So we have a comparison of the number of minutes played to the number of points scored. So looking at a couple of pieces of data here, this shows that in 12 minutes of playing, they scored maybe 7 points. In 24 minutes of playing, this person scored 18 points. So we're looking to see if there was a relationship. This was all plotted and the trend line was drawn showing there is definitely a positive relationship, showing that the more minutes played, the more points are scored. So we are just going to find the slope, the y-intercept, and then write the equation so that we can start predicting some future data. Let's start with slope. If I want to find the rate of change or the slope in this data, what I generally like to do is find some nice clean intersections. Like right here, I think is a good intersection, right? It's looking like it's right at 16 as an x value and at 12 as a y value. Now I just need to find another one, like maybe right here. Those aren't actual data points, but they are points that fall on our trend line, so we can use them. All right, so this shows an increase of 8 in the y direction. Remember to count your units, right? These are going up by 4s. This direction is also going up by 4. So 4, 8, 12. So that's an increase of 12 in the x direction. So this gives me a slope. Remember, slope is change in y, so how far up or down, divided by the change in x. So my slope is positive 8 over positive 12, but I would like to reduce that. So if I reduce by 4, that gives me 2/3. So that is my slope value. That's the rate of change. Now let's look for the y-intercept. This thing isn't actually crossing the y-axis, but if we were to continue this line, there's no breaks in the graph, it looks like it's going to cross right at 0. And think about that logically. If we're going back 4 minutes played to 0 minutes, it makes sense that you score 0 points, right? So 0, 0 definitely makes sense. So I'm going to say my y-intercept is 0, 0. So that means b equals 0. So now I have a slope and I have an intercept, which means I'm ready to write an equation of a line. So this trend line in y equals mx plus b form, where m is my slope and b is my intercept, is going to give us y equals 2/3 x plus 0. But we really don't need this plus 0 because it doesn't change anything. So I'm just going to say, here is my equation. So that's the equation of my trend line. We've got a positive slope. It's going up and to the right. It averages up 2 over 3 and it crosses at 0. So this means up 2 over 3 means you increase points earned by 2 every 3 minutes played. So now we're ready for the questions. It says, how many points will they score with 80 minutes of playing time? Now keep in mind, minutes, this is our x value, right? There's our x value. So 80 minutes played, we're going to input for x. So I have y equals 2/3 times 80. I want to know what my y value is. I want to know the score after they play 80 minutes. We're going to multiply this out. You can use a calculator or you can just do it in your head. I decided to do 80 times 2 is 160 and I divided that by 3. So I'll give you a second. Go ahead and figure that out. You're going to notice that you got a decimal. In real life, our numbers don't always come out as perfect integer values. real life numbers and real life data is going to give us decimals, but that's okay. We're going to estimate it. So if I rounded this, I think I could easily say with supported data that 80 minutes of playing time, we can assume this person will get about 53 points. I'm just going to write that in a sentence. After 80 minutes of playing time, they could score, I'm going to say will, we're going to be positive here, about 53 points. All right, the next question, it's going to switch it up a little bit on us. Instead of trying to ask how many points we're going to get after a certain number of minutes, now it's saying how many minutes until they earn 1,000 points, which means we'll be plugging in 1,000 for y, and we're actually going to solve for x this time. So if I'm going to plug in 1,000 for y, we're looking at 1,000 equals 2/3 times x. So this time I want to get x alone. So remember back way in the beginning of the year, when we wanted to get rid of a fraction, we could do it in 2 steps or 1. 2 steps, you would just multiply by 3 on both sides and then divide by 2. Or we can just multiply by the reciprocal on both sides. Everything cancels. X is by itself. And we are looking at 1,000 times 3/2. I'm going to think of it as maybe 3 times 500. I got 1,500 as my answer. No rounding necessary. So what this means is that it would take this person on the current path that they're on 1,500 minutes to reach 1,000 points. So I'm going to say it will take 1,500 minutes to earn 1,000 points. It's a lot of playing time. All right, so we took a scatter plot, we wrote an equation of its trend line, and we used that equation of the trend line to predict some future data. We're going to do that again on the next page. So just like before, you can either try this on your own and hit play when you're ready for answers, or since it looks a little more complicated and there is one little trick in this one, you can just stay on and we'll do it together. It's totally up to you. All right, on the top of the page, it says, over the last 10 years, the Student Council has recorded student attendance at the semi-formal, so they can track trends and predict attendance at future events. Using the data in the chart, respond to the prompts that follow. So here's all the years, 2009 through 2019, and here's the number of students that attended each semi-formal dance. It asks you to graph the data on the grid below. So the first thing I want to do is look at my lowest numbers and my highest numbers for the x and y values so that I can determine what I'm going to use for a scale on my axes. So let's start with the x values, the years. Starts at 2009 and we go to 2019. I think what I'm going to do is make my axis years since 2000. That way I can just have like a little break in the graph and I can say this is 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, this is getting a little cramped, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, okay? So I've got a couple extra spaces, but that's okay. One thing to be really careful of here is that I do have this break in the graph. So from here to here is really showing a span of 9 years, and then I'm counting by ones. That's gonna come in really important later. All right, my Y values are going to be my student attendance. My lowest number is 111. My highest number is 141. I think what I'm gonna do is use another break in my graph. So I'm gonna break the graph again. And I think I'm gonna go from 110, and I think I'm gonna count by twos. This might take me a second. Notice I didn't quite make it. So the top of my graph is 140 and my highest data point is 141. It's not ideal, but I could just add a horizontal line in there. I have space, right? That'll be okay. All right, so my Y value, this is number of students. We always want to make sure we label these. This is title of my graph, semi. That's a heart. It's ugly, but it's a heart. Okay, it's time to plot all our data. So be careful when you plot. I'm gonna plot mine. I'm gonna do my best. Here's 9. There was 111 people that went to the dance in 2009. 2010, we had 114. 2011, we had 118. 2012, we had 122. 2013 had 120. Oh, dropped down a little bit. Wonder what the theme was. 2014, we jumped up to 126. 2015, we were at 130. 2016, we had 127. Oh, went back down. 2017, we had 134. 2018 had 139. Oh, almost off my graph. And finally, 2019, we had 141. Just off my graph. All right, I've got everything plotted. So my first step, it says draw an appropriate trend line for your data and decide if it's positive, negative, constant, or no trend. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, this is a positive trend. As the years go on, we get more and more people attending the semi-formal dance. So that would be a positive trend. Okay, number 2, find the slope of your trend line. So the way I'm going to find my slope is the way I found it before. I look for nice, perfect, beautiful intersections. I like this one, and let's see where this is the next nice intersection. Here's a good one. I'm going to use those 2 points. So I'm going to look at how far up I would have to go. Remember, we're counting by 2s. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. And then this direction I'm counting by 1s. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Of course it's an odd number. That's lame. I wish it was even. That's okay. All right, slope of my trend line is 20/7. Doesn't even reduce. Hopefully you guys have a prettier one than me. If you're curious to know what that kind of looks like, 20/7, it's gonna be like 3-ish, right? 2.85. So that's like 2.85. We want to leave it in fraction form, but if you were just curious, it just means you're increasing by about close to 3 people per year. All right, y-intercept of the line. This one is tricky. Because we have these breaks in our graph, we can't say like, oh, it looks like it's crossing at 0, 0, or even it looks like it's crossing at 108, because there's a break in the graph. So what we need to do is keep in mind what our slope is. So our slope says that we have about 3 people added each year. We're looking for what happened in year 2000. So 9 years prior to this, right? 9 years earlier, we're trying to look at how many people there were. There's a few ways we can do this. We can take our equation and we can say, well, we know our slope is 20/7, and then just pick an x and y value and we'll solve it for b. Any x and y you want. I might use this one, 10 and 14. So let's say x is 10, y is 114. I'm just gonna plug it in. I know it looks a little bit crazy, but logically, all we're doing is just counting backwards. We're counting 9 years backwards. You can use a calculator for this if it makes you feel more comfortable. It's totally up to you. What's going to happen is I'm going to multiply these together. So I have 200 over 7 plus b. I'm just going to subtract 200 over 7 from both sides. So let's look at it. 200, actually, you know, I'm going to plug it in right here. 114 minus 200 divided by 7. It's 85.42. I'm going to say it's about 85. So my b value is at about 85. The other way you could approach that is if you're looking for 9 years prior and it's just under 3, you could just subtract 27 from 2009. Couple ways to do it. Here's another way I can do it. Ready? I plotted them all on my calculator. I know you guys are jealous. I inputted all of these as x and y values and I plotted them. And then, this part's really cool. I can calculate all of that information right in my calculator. And watch this. Let's see what we get. They have a slope of 2.89, pretty darn close to ours, and a y-intercept of 85. Pretty awesome, right? And here's their line. It looks just like ours. Not bad. I think we did pretty well. So I don't want you stressing out about finding y-intercepts. Generally, it's not that bad. The only reason we had to do those extra steps is because we had that break in the graph. But just use some logic reasoning or grab yourself a calculator or just ask for help. Okay, so now I'm ready. I have my slope. I have my y-intercept. I'm ready. Y equals mx plus b, so 20 over 7, x plus 85. We've got our equation. So now it says, according to your prediction, how many students will attend the semi-formal in 2020? So this is time. We need to plug this in for x. I'm not going to plug in 2020, right? Because we're looking at years since 2000. I'm just going to plug in a 20. So what I need to do is just input into my equation an x value of 20. You can do this out by hand, or if you're not comfortable, just grab yourself a calculator. If I grab my calculator, I'm looking at, I'm going to make this 400 over 7. And I'm going to add the 85. I have 142. Seems low, but that's okay. So this just estimates that in the year 2020, semi-formal, we'll have 142 participants. That seems to make sense, right? It's pretty reasonable. Look at the bottom one. It says the actual attendance was 0. Hashtag Corona. How did your answer compare? Just kidding. That one's a joke. All right. This is a little bit tricky. I don't want you overwhelmed. As long as you understand the general idea that we are plotting some points, drawing a trend line, finding the slope, finding the intercept, write the equation, and then just be able to plug in an x and a y value. And that's it. You guys got this. See you later.